Hey, I'm Cole, and this is Off Track with TheRailz. Today I'm reviewing Lil Peep's Come Over When You're Sober Part 2, and also a sort of mini review of Come Over When You're Sober Part 1. Lil Peep was a SoundCloud rapper turned SoundCloud rock star. He released a few projects on SoundCloud, did a ton of collabs and features, was in the collective Goth Boy Clique, and formerly Schema Posse with Ghostmane, had an underrated project with Lil Tracy, and eventually dropped his first full album, Come Over When You're Sober Part 1. Peep primarily made music in the emo trap or emo rap genre, with grunge and pop rock influences. His production more often than not consisted of fairly low-quality trap beats with rock samples thrown in. He rapped in a sing-songy cadence and oftentimes would sing, though not very well, in anguished vocals. He was considered the Kurt Cobain of SoundCloud. He sang about drugs, sex, and wanting to die. His songs were made up of hook and chorus repeated ad nauseum and oftentimes lacked any actual verses. All of these things, along with his public image and his image, were what made Peep blow up in the blossoming emo trap SoundCloud scene, while also being his weakness. I really liked Peep's music. In fact, I still regularly throw on his songs. However, I didn't really feel Come Over When You're Sober Part 1, Peep's debut album. Peep took on more of his influences and attempted to make his own rock album. However, his singing was still mediocre and the production still felt like cheap-sounding trap beats, but with so much additional sound that it made it feel cluttered and messy rather than lo-fi and raw. The glitzy touch-ups to make this album feel really big didn't sit right with the charm of Peep's lo-fi emo rap sound for me. Peep's actual songwriting also felt like it had taken a dive. Peep is good at making catchy tunes and easy-to-repeat hooks, but Come Over When You're Sober Part 1 didn't stick for me, save for a couple of tracks. And while Peep isn't known for being a lyricist, the songs felt particularly empty on this album, which made his I Want to Die themes feel almost exploitive and rubbed me the wrong way. Ben's Truck and Save That Shit are pretty dope though. If you're going to look Peep up, you'll probably be greeted with a lot of songs from this album, and that's fine, but please do yourself a favor and look up some of Peep's more noteworthy songs prior to Come Over When You're Sober. Beamer Boy is catchier than the entirety of that album, and The Way I See Things and Star Shopping are lovely songs with some strong lyrics. Some other Peep songs that I like are I Crash, You Crash, Let Me Bleed, Lil Jeep, We Think Too Much, Ghost Girl, Stop the Car, Girls, and Toxic City. Also, the Castles 2 EP with Lil Tracy is slept on. Come Over When You're Sober Part 2 is right off the bat better than Part 1. I'm seeing a lot of people online disagree with that statement, and that's fine, but I dig this and I didn't dig Part 1. If I were to sum up this album, I'd say it's pretty nice. Nice is subjective, obviously, and in the case of Peep, if you don't like Peep's music, you won't like this. It's a mix of Peep's older sound and his drugged-out, slurred style he had in later songs. Peep goes full-on into making his own rock-pop album, and with the production, it just straight-up reminds me of, like, I don't know, a Simple Plan or something. The singing style feels more varied and daring, throwing in a mix of the sing-songy rap style in addition to the wailing emo and rock vocals. It's reminiscent of his Hellboy project, but more fleshed out and developed. While the production on this project is much smoother than I think a lot of people want Peep songs to be, I think the producer Smokesack did a solid job building an atmosphere that works well with Peep's words and delivery. The album feels cleaner and crisper, but still very meandering with the expected guitar samples over trap beats, which gets tiring for me, honestly. But to its credit, the production feels a lot more interesting this time around. The album feels way more finished than I was expecting. I was worried it'd be unfinished song snippets that Smokesack and the studio chopped together to make a Frankenstein album, but it definitely feels like Peep had finished up a lot of what he was wanting to do with the project before he died. Whether that's true or if it's all coming from the production done after the fact to get this album out, I don't know. I know a number of the cuts from this are just flipped and remixed versions of Peep's older tracks, which may also explain why I like it more, because I enjoy Peep's older work way more than his newer work. Peep's older material, while very much mediocre, always contained this charm and spark to it. The lyrics were simple, yet always had a real tangible emotion to them, something relatable that felt much more real and not like the hollow ones on Part 1. I don't know how to explain it because, as I've discussed in the comments section before, I'm not a fan of the current romanticizing of depression that's going on right now. And the difference between old Peep tracks and new Peep tracks very subtly lies somewhere in the songwriting that I can't quite pinpoint. The production also comes into play. When Peep is singing over a shitty beat, it's reminiscent of garage bands and bedroom poets. When you clean up Peep and turn his songs into radio singles, it just loses that quality of raw emotion, even if they're being written from the same place. Peep doesn't tell grand stories, he tells simple ones that an average person can click with from an emotional level rather than a mental. You're not thinking about the lyrics or the stories being told, you just feel the vibe that Peep's putting out. And Come Over When You're Sober Part 2, I think, does a solid job of putting Peep's sound into something that's both accessible and emotional. The songs still contain Peep's typical repeated ad nauseum hooks and choruses and the same themes just repeated in various ways, but that's expected going into a Peep project. You're not going to get beyond the face value. When Peep says he wants to die, he says he wants to die. It sounds surface level, but if you feel his words, then that's all you need, really. If someone can relate to what Peep is saying, then those words can strike just as deep as any other. I'm not going to do a complete rundown of every song like I did with the Kamikaze review because this is already feeling a bit over bloated and rambly. The songs all contain this very potently sad, and I don't mean this as an insult, but almost a pathetic sound. With the context of Peep's death, they feel really haunting. Peep sounds broken. He sounds like he's barely hanging on. There's an energy to his music, but not one of fire. Broken Smile and Sex With My Ex are highlights for me. 16 Lines is low-key devastating. I Don't Give a Fuck is probably my fave on the album, with a great backing track, very tilted and intoxicating delivery from Peep. Life is Beautiful is one of the old songs remixed for the album, and is probably one of the few times where you feel like you might get a deeper look at either Peep or at least Peep's ability as a songwriter and storyteller. Falling Down With X is lackluster, but a nice novelty track, I guess, though I actually prefer the original done with I Love McKinnon. Overall, this album shows a glimpse of where Peep could have gone if he had lived to mature and find better footing in the emo trap genre he was helping to shape. If you like Peep shit, give it a shot. 6 out of 10. This album is an interesting one in the aftermath of Peep's passing. I'm seeing a lot of people discussing how the producer Smokesack just flipped and remixed some older Peep cuts and redid the beats for a lot of what Peep recorded for this album, which they find to be a betrayal of Peep's intentions. I can't speak to that. I don't know the situation. This album for the most part feels complete, which is good for someone like me who's just wanting to listen to a good project. But whether it was finished as Peep wanted is something that we can't know. There seems to be a rift between Peep's friends, colleagues, and even fans, with people saying this album is a scam for certain people and labeled to make money, while I see other people saying that this album was made with love and Peep would have wanted this. Posthumous releases obviously aren't a new thing, but the topic seems to be a hot one right now with regards to this album and just the general concept of packaging up unfinished material to release and claim as a full project. This is something in particular I'm worried about with the upcoming XXXTentacion album. It's definitely an interesting discussion and something that might be worth talking about another day. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, let me know what you thought of Peep's album or this review, and let me know what you'd like to see next. Like the video, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Have a good day. Peace.